Hello, thanks for joining us on Undercurrent, a current affairs show about Perth, made in Perth, by Perth people. We're happy to have you with us this evening, and we're looking forward to bringing you the stories that affect you. Perth's a small city, but it's filled with amazing people with even more amazing stories. Each week we're going to dive into what's going on in your community and discover the hidden stories of Perth. Tonight we've got another great show lined up for you. When attending large events, such as, say, the Australia Day fireworks, you don't often think about who is behind the scenes, ensuring that you have a safe time. I caught up again with security specialists David Turner and Dennis Gallagher to hear about what goes on behind the scenes for those big events. So when we talk about large events, like, say, a Bon Jovi concert, what sort of security is really required at that kind of gig?
Okay, well, Jason, there's a lot of security and planning that goes into it. What we need to do is have a security company, maybe working with two other security companies. They do a risk management analysis, and what that means is they find the location, who's coming and going, and the VIPs that may be there. So there's a lot that goes into planning that kind of event.
So I remember back in the old days with security for events, you'd just go out and hire a bunch of really burly guys, and that would be as technical as it got. But you're suggesting there's actually a lot more to doing proper security.
There's a huge amount of depth.
Yeah, there's those days are long gone now. The guy, you know, they're always called Nick or Pat. They're gone now. You've got to have guys that are spot on, they know their job, they've got to be well trained. So each one of these security guys have got to know what's going on, because there's some big penalties handed down.
All right, obviously you need more than one type of security, so it's not just about the crowd controllers, there's a lot more to it. What are the other sorts of security that you would have at that kind of event?
We can have the normal risk management company. They do the assessment, they do the procedures, they do all the fine detail around that.
I've been to events where they've got big snarly dogs.
Yes.
What's that all about? Why do you need dogs?
Now, the day of the big snarly dog is long gone. Now you're talking about my speciality now. Today the dog has got to be sociable, he's got to be people friendly, but at the same time he's got to be that deterrent. Now the beauty of a dog, especially on the perimeter, is that it can save a lot of money versus guards or manpower.
The very fact that we need better security these days, is that indicative of the cops not doing their job properly?
Not really. The cops do a fantastic job within their manpower. And for examples like Northbridge in Perth, with the changing population, the growth in population, the economy and many other social factors, what we really need to do is embrace security, make it a habit. It's not a paranoia, it's really a self-awareness of our surroundings, where we're going and who we're going with. So yes, we need to make security part of our lives.
So people like me, do I need security in my life? Do I need to be hiring a security firm to look after me?
Everybody needs security. It depends on the threat that pertains to you, depends where you're going, what you're doing.
Obviously every year people are complaining that on Australia Day there's violence happening on the foreshore, and with Choggum coming we're going to see a lot of world leaders here as well. What can Perth do to stay safe, and what can individuals do to stay safe?
We're looking at the Sky Show that's coming up very, very soon. The Premier this year has everyone cordoned off to a certain area. This is good because alcohol will be in one designated area and not throughout the whole Sky Show. But what we need to do is that we'll always find someone who does have alcohol in the wrong area. So we need to be careful of where we go, where we sit down and who we're sitting next to. So it's really a matter of, again, assessing the situation, finding the best spot. Other things we can do is be close to a police facility or a security guard facility in case the worst happens, and really having a good parking spot for our car where we can get to it quickly afterwards and have a good entry and exit process plan.
The other thing you've got to be aware of is security guards are not just there for security, they're also there for people's health. So one of the things that all security guards now have to be St John's first aid trained.
Right.
So again, it's not just matters of security, it's also matters of health.
Is terrorism something that we really need to concern ourselves with in Perth?
Look, I think terrorism is a threat worldwide, but at the end of the day, no, we've got enough government organisations out there, we've got the civilian organisations out there. I don't think it's going to be a great deal of difference for the people in Perth. No, I don't think Perth people should be alarmed at all.
All right, guys, thanks.
Thank you.
Let's head down to Black Tom's now and join Nick Hayes as he interviews ABC broadcaster James Lush.
James, you run a very successful ABC breakfast program. What's some of the keys to your success? I mean, your ratings are better than most other radio stations right across Perth.
I think it probably boils down to just hopefully thinking about it for a whole week. That gives me time to work out what I want to have in it and what I don't. And also after a while you get a bit of a following knowing that you're going to be doing certain things. And I'm not trying to push one thing or another, but I do try and make people have a little bit of a think at the weekend rather than just supply pretty average fodder which you sometimes see throughout the week. Being able to have a whole week to think about it is obviously an advantage.
Gardening's a big part of your program. Are you a gardener?
No.
You're not.
It's a great shame, mind you, there was a time a couple of days ago when I was asked by a person whether I could do this or do that in their garden, and I, funnily enough, knew the answer to it. So maybe a little bit is subconsciously sticking.
It is sticking.
Yeah.
You've interviewed some amazing people. You've had work. You worked for the BBC. You now work for the ABC. Who've been some of the more memorable people you've interviewed?
The couple stand out. First of all, Pete Postlethwaite, the actor. English actor, but based in Hollywood, but he was over in Perth a couple of years ago, so he was actually able to do a face-to-face interview with a Hollywood megastar. He was brilliant. Jeffrey Archer, the author, was also another brilliant interview, because love him or hate him, he's interesting.
Yes.
And I like those people who, you know, one way or another make people think, oh, I quite like him even though I don't want to. I think he's quite interesting. He was a fabulous interview.
Would you ever consider working in a commercial network?
No.
No?
It wouldn't work for me. No, I need to. The ABC is probably the only one that would have me over in Australia, being an English accent.
Really, I didn't notice. Whereabouts are you actually from?
I was born in the south of England. I grew up in Yorkshire, which is in the kind of the middle, and then I was up at university in Scotland, up in Edinburgh.
How long have you been here for?
Nearly 7 years.
Nearly 7 years. Do you feel like you are a West Australian?
I think I do. There are still times when obviously I'll say I'm going home, and sometimes I mean going back to UK, and I don't think that will ever go away. You know, your roots are where your roots are.
Yeah, you've got 3 kids. Do they consider themselves Australian?
Well, 2 were born here, and you know, when you ask who's wanting who to win the cricket, they go for Australia, and the other one, the oldest, goes for England.
Would you ever plan to move back there?
It's very difficult, isn't it? And I don't think you ever say no to anything. You always keep, you know, an eye on one thing or another. I love it here. This is my home. This is where I've now sort of settled. But it's equally difficult when all your family, and we don't have family over here, are still back in the UK.
Did Australians have the welcome mat there for you? Did you find it difficult to make friends with Australians?
I think it was hard to set up business here in Australia.
Yeah.
I think because Perth is a very isolated city. Unless you know people, or you went to school with them, or you're related to them in some way, Perth's a hard city. And I always remember being told that if you can make it in Perth, you can make it anywhere.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just talk about Perth. What do you love about Perth?
I think the best thing about Perth is the amazing space, the blue skies, the opportunities, and being in a place where, if you think about it, there aren't many places in the world right now that is doing what Perth is doing. So being involved in an economy that is doing what it's doing is phenomenal. And I like the fact that there is this we'll give it a go attitude here. And rarely a day goes by without bumping into someone who says, how about doing a bit of this, or how about doing that? Have you thought about this? And you know, business-wise and ideas-wise, I love it.
Yeah. Good. James, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure.
Cheers.
Thanks, Nick and James. Jeremy joins us again now to talk about the importance of keeping Aboriginal culture alive in the wake of westernisation.
Hi, my name is Jeremy Garlett. In this segment, we look at Western change. And Western change to an ancient civilization, an Aboriginal civilization, similar to the Maya people, similar to ancient people of Peru, ancient people around the world who've been impacted by Western culture. Ancient cultures are just as important to the West as the West is important to ancient cultures, and there's reciprocity. And this process of reciprocity where I can learn from this, rather than just steamrolling the whole process and steamrolling, and then we lose a culture. We see this in evidence here in the West, where Aboriginal cultures are losing their identity, people losing their language, they're losing their own identity within themselves to identify as Aboriginal people, their language. Ngalang is your spirit of yourself, which is in your own presence of your silence. It's just an ancient saying. When you are in your silence, multitudes of processes that take place. There's words, there's all sorts of things that are taking place when you're in your silence. You become wara when you're upset. You become kartwara, and this is all Noongar words. Or you become dambakan, removed from the self and removed from the authentic self of the centre of your own inner peace. This comes from Aboriginal culture, and it's been passed on for centuries, not only for our people, but we can also use it in Western culture. They would sing, "Ngaranyini, ngaranyini," and when you hear that sound, the brain, in your whole brain changes, and it goes into a relaxed form of consciousness, and you're opening up the knowledge that you're being imparted by the elders. And this information is there. It's been done for centuries, and role-playing so important when you go hunting, and if you're going right up to the other end to hunt, you become the kangaroo becomes you, and you role play that process, and then you go hunting. And what happens is you are a part of that land, the land is a part of you, the kangaroo is a part of you, and you can even talk the same language of the kangaroo in the song, where you chant and chant, and you chant. And then when you chant, the animal becomes complacent with all that process, and you can hunt the kangaroo, kill the kangaroo, eat the kangaroo, but don't waste its food, because it's there for your sustenance, and say the prayers of the universe of thanksgiving for that process. So it's important to retain and keep that culture alive, because what we do lose is the knowledge that we can use today. This knowledge that we can use today is knowledge that we can use in the future, because in the future we'll go back and we'll say, oh, what happened to those Aboriginal people? Who were they? Where do they live? Futuristic people will be going, who are the Aboriginal people? Dad, why did they all die? How come there was no information left behind? And who were they? And can Dad say, oh, they were these people, they spoke this language, that generation didn't really care about those people, similar to the Incas. And then it's a lost civilization. Let's make sure that we retain this, so it's not a lost civilization.
We're going to take a very quick break, but when we come back, we're going to have a chat with Glenn Foreman from the Sunday Times about something to do with sport. We'll find out more.